Now on to our next story. Chinese President Xi Jinping will be heading to North Korea this week to meet with Kim Jong Un. It's the first visit by a Chinese leader in over a decade.
The invitation was made by Mr. Kim, who traveled to Beijing 4 times since last year. However, the two leaders have not met since Mr. Kim's failed summit with Donald Trump, and this was back in February. Beijing is a major donor of food and fuel aid to North Korea.
Now for more, let's speak to Senior Associate Professor Stephen Nagy from the Department of Politics and International Studies at the International Christian University in Tokyo, and also Distinguished Fellow at the Asia Pacific Foundation, Canada. Firstly, what do you make of the timing then of this visit, coming just before the G20 summit next weekend?
Well, I think both leaders, Chairman Kim and General Secretary President Xi, are both feeling the pressures of the Trump administration. After the walkaway by President Trump at the Hanoi summit and the lack of negotiations since that time, the Pyongyang has been trying to pressure the United States in various ways to bring them back to the table. They met President Putin in Vladivostok. Now we have President Xi coming to Pyongyang. These are strong symbols that President Kim does have, or Chairman Kim does have options within the region. In terms of President Xi, he's under tremendous pressure. The trade war is affecting the economy. If we look at ordinary consumables such as apples and other foods, we've had these peripheral movements such as we've seen in Hong Kong over the past few weeks. And again, President Trump's threat to President Xi that if he doesn't show up at the summit, that he's going to increase tariffs, is placing a tremendous amount of pressure on President Xi. And by turning to North Korea, it's an opportunity to show to President Trump that he can destabilize some of the signature policies of the American president.
So do you think that will be the top of the agenda then, the relationship with the U.S. and also sort of the messaging that this meeting sort of does show?
Well, not so much the messaging or the relationship itself, but I think both Kim and Xi are going to try to use this as an opportunity to demonstrate to President Trump that they have options, that the denuclearization process and the normalization of relations with the United States is not a foregone conclusion, and that Kim can reach out to other players within the region to achieve its strategic goals. And for President Xi, again, he is trying to bring into this puzzle some negotiating terms that he can use with President Trump. So I could foresee President Xi saying to President Trump that, listen, we can help you a lot more on the North Korea issue if you take the pressure off the trade front. So I think there's a lot going on here, and these two leaders are trying to figure out how they can press their national interests, at the same time not lose face within their different political polities.
Well, Stephen, I hear you say a lot of options for Mr. Xi. In the past few months, he has been paying visits to a number of world leaders. You mentioned there Russia. He's also gone to Italy and France. Is he seeking to firm up alliances as this trade war deepens? What is the signal that he's sending out?
Well, we should be clear that the only alliance that China has is the one with North Korea. China is isolated globally. It does have partnerships, and the BRI, the Belt Road Initiative, is a form of partnership with many different countries. But, for example, the one signed with Italy is a memorandum of understanding that's very different from all the other memorandums that have been signed on the BRI. These relationships are not, tied through an alliance kind of relationship. But that being said, President Xi is out there trying to find partners, trying to find support for its initiatives to demonstrate to the United States that China as well has options, and it doesn't necessarily have to succumb to U.S. pressure. It can cozy up with the Russians or other countries. And we've seen that, the tremendous pressure by the Trump administration on Huawei and the tech and made-in-China industry. China responded by going to Russia and signing 5G contracts with the Russians. So he's trying to demonstrate there's a lot of options out there.
All right. Thank you very much for your time and speaking to us. We're speaking there with Senior Associate Professor Stephen Nagy from Tokyo.